I'm going to share with you two personal success stories of my life to illustrate my point. Here we go. 15 years ago, I was a marine biologist. And I used to work in a huge marine aquaculture farm like this one, where there were hundreds of marine cages. These cages were made of rectangular frames with fish nets all around. And we simply put the fish in the cage, put the cage in the water, and let the fish grow. Simple. However, we had a problem. Problem was that seaweed would grow on those cage nets and block the water flow. And we had to find a solution. I came up with an interesting idea. I decided to transform this rectangular cage into a cylindrical cage that we will lay on its length, half submerged in water. We'll let the fish grow inside happily. And once the seaweed would grow on the cage, we would simply rotate the cage, expose the seaweed to the sun, they would dry and fall off. Problem was solved. At 21 years old, I was invited at the International Symposium on Aquaculture in Florida, United States, to present my finding. I was the youngest scientist. I don't think that I would have been that successful at this age if I hadn't been creative. Bottom line, creativity really kickstart success. Now, if you're not yet convinced, I have another story for you. A bit different, a bit more recent. 7 years ago, I decided to become a lawyer. You know, in Quebec, it's too cold to be a marine biologist at minus 40 outside. Just imagine. And I remember when I was a law student, I had so much to read. And I would forget about everything, except for some scribbles in my notes. You know, I had this tendency of scribbling down my notes instead of writing them down. I had this artistic mind. And thanks to these scribbles, I was able to remember most of my legal concepts for exams, and I passed. And one day I thought, if I can scribble legal concepts on a piece of paper, why not draw those concepts on canvas? Well, that's how legal art was created. I created legal art. Legal art is simply art inspired by legal concepts. Not only I did this legal art paintings, but I created the Legal Art Gallery, which is an online art gallery where you can visualize all these artworks, comment on them in a kind of cool way, and learn about law. And I also coach professionals how to be more creative at work by merging left brain analytical thinking with right brain artistic thinking or right brain imagination to be more creative. But I'm not here today simply to tell you that creativity is important for success, because you've probably heard about that before. I'm here to tell you something else. I'm here to share my secret how to be creatively successful. And my secret is analogical thinking. Yes, analogical thinking is about connecting things that at first sight seem to have nothing in common and come up with something new. Like connecting law and art. There's nothing in common and come up with legal art. Or connecting marine biology and plastic pipes to come up with a new cage prototype in a scientific experiment. Why plastic pipe? Because the idea of the cylindrical cage that I showed you before came up in my mind one day while I was having fun crafting with plastic pipe. And this has nothing to do with my job. That's how the idea came from. But I'm not the only one using analogical thinking to be creative. Steve Jobs would connect calligraphy to computing to create beautiful typography for the first Mac. Gaudi, the famous architect, would study nature and biological structures to build architectural marvels. Shakespeare would not only use analogies, but metaphor in enriching his own writings. One thing that you have to remember from this talk, and I'm going to conclude on this, the more you train your brain to think analogically, the easier it would be for you to see links and connections everywhere that you're going to use in your business and also in your work to be creatively successful.